Hello and welcome to VR Reviews. Today we'll be reviewing the 1000 Toys Hellboy. So yes, here we have Hellboy, a figure that I've been waiting for quite some time. I'd kind of gone back and forth about pre-ordering it. I think I pre-ordered it like 3 different times, but I did finally decide that I really wanted to get him. And he is a very cool figure. If you're a big fan of the Hellboy comics, I think this is definitely something you should pick up. I personally am not. I just have seen the movies and the animated movies. I've never read any of them, but I still wanted to have a really nice Hellboy figure, and this is one of those. I'm not entirely certain if it's worth the $100 price point to me personally, but I think it is absolutely worth it if you are a big Hellboy fan. Starting off with a quick size comparison, of course, here we have Hellboy. Here's our 6-inch standard Marvel Legends Cosmic Armor Iron Man and 3 3/4-inch Marvel Universe Wolverine. Hellboy is more in line with Japanese 1/12 scale figures, so he's not quite as tall as you might would want him to be, but he's still noticeably taller than an American 6-inch scale figure, and of course much bigger than a 3 3/4-inch figure. Now let's get everything else out of here and just look at Hellboy. Moving on to our 360 spin, as you would imagine, Hellboy is mostly red. All of his muscles are sculpted nicely, and he has little detail lines sculpted everywhere and little bits of shading here and there. Of course, he has his big right hand of doom, which is sculpted properly. The articulation breaks up the sculpt a little bit, but it still looks fairly fine. Down to the waist, he has his belt with all the little pouches and his big gun holster. His holster opens from the back instead of the front, which is weird, and I have no clue why they did it that way, but it is done that way. He's got a horseshoe and a cross hanging off of his belt. He's got his black shorts with little tan stripes on them. And then he has his black boots with little straps around those and his little hoof tips poking out the bottom of them. So overall, his detail is really nice, and I think it's a very good representation of the Hellboy comic art. So no real complaints there. Head sculpt-wise, Hellboy comes with 2 different heads. He has his neutral expression and his grimacing expression. Both of the heads are detailed really well. His hair and beard are gray. He's got nice black around the yellow eyes. The sculpt is all very nice. You do have to remove his horn stumps and interchange them between the heads. I'm guessing this is mostly done this way because he has interchangeable big proper horns if you buy the deluxe version of this figure. Otherwise, I would say they should just be molded as part of the head. But I understand why they are done this way, so that's all fine. Articulation-wise, Hellboy is really good and also rather unique. Nice ball peg in the head that moves forward and back, side to side. His neck all the way down to the chest is rubber, and it's got this sort of unique internal system of ratcheted joints. I wasn't quite sure about it until I had it in hand, but it's actually very effective and it allows him to bend forward and back really well, and it doesn't break the sculpt, so I'm fairly fond of that. Get a lot of range of motion there. Shoulders move in and out, forward and back, rotate around in the socket, bicep cut, double jointed elbow and rotation, hinge and rotation in the wrist, rotation in the waist, hips move in and out, forward and back, rotate around on the joint a little bit, upper thigh rotation, double jointed knees, calf rotation, hinge, pivoting in the ankles. His tail is on a little ball peg in the back. Since they're going for all the internal articulation, they probably should have done a wire for the tail, but that's not a big complaint. And then if you move over here to his big right hand of doom, it is slightly different than the other side. It gets a ball joint for the elbow, a big sort of weird hinge that attaches it to the arm itself. Then you get a little ball joint in the wrist, which doesn't get quite enough motion, but it's tolerable. And then each one of his fingers is on little ball pegs and hinges. Basically, each part of his hand moves in every point that it should move in, so you can get a lot of hand mobility there. So with all that, basically you should be able to get him into any kind of pose you could really want to. And I have absolutely no real complaints about the articulation of any substance. So that's all nice. Accessories-wise, Hellboy comes with a few things. He has 4 different left hands. He has 1 fist hand, 1 open palm hand, 1 relaxed hand, and 1 trigger hand for his gun. Then he has said gun, which is a big, bulky sort of revolver. It's painted an aged sort of metal-y gray, and the handle is brown. And lastly, he has his coat. It has a little patch on the sleeve. The collar is a darker brown, and it has internal wires in the edges, so you can pose the edges of the coat. All in all, a perfectly reasonable amount of accessories, and they are all things you would certainly want Hellboy to have, so that's cool. Packaging wise, you get a pretty nice box. It has a slip cover with some art on one side and a picture of the figure on the other. I'm not actually sure which side is the front, so you can just choose, I guess. I don't know. Then if you take that off, you get a big nice window to display the figure, 1/12 scale action figure, Hellboy, and on the back you get the Hellboy logo and the little director and sculptor names and stuff like that. As is usually the case with boxes like this, if you remove the slipcover, it is perfectly fine for in or out of package display. And that about wraps it up for Hellboy. So until next time, goodbye!